Welcome back to Season 2 of Zevo Talks. I'm your host, Aisling. Last season, we started our conversations surrounding corporate wellbeing programs, which we will be continuing in this season. Globally, we've all been adapting to what is happening around us. Companies have had to think about new ways of working, which has greatly impacted how our organisations run, the people within, and the wellbeing of their employees. This season, we will look at how an organisation can support their people. Today, we are chatting with Sharon Vize, CPL HR Director, to get her insights into the benefits of having a wellbeing programme during the pandemic. Sharon, you're very welcome to Zevo Talks. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join us. We're not in our usual studio today. We are recording this over Zoom. Sharon, could you talk us through a little bit about your role within CPL?
Sure. I'm the HR Director in CPL, and I've been with CPL for about 10 years now. And I suppose my role is supporting the whole business as such in all HR related matters across Ireland, UK and Central Eastern Europe. And I support the business on meeting their organisational objectives by driving our culture and our values through various people programmes, which basically covers the whole employee life cycle. We have about 1,100 people that are based across Ireland, UK and Central Eastern Europe. And we also have up to about 10,000 staff who work across a range of our client sites. So quite a large remit as such within our business.
And Zevo Health have been a partner with CPL for 3 years now. So what has been your experience with having a wellbeing provider on board?
I think with having a wellbeing provider on board has really transformed how we drive our wellbeing strategy within the organisation. We would have had multiple providers over a number of years providing different services. And I think by us engaging with Zevo, it's actually, I suppose, helped us in terms of delivering, I suppose, a one-stop program as such, but with lots of variety within that. And I think also the depth and the breadth in which we can do that across the UK, Ireland and Central Eastern Europe has been really significant to us. Inclusion and inclusiveness within the workplace is extremely important to us. So it's important that whatever provider that we did go with, and obviously by choosing Zevo, we were delighted, but that they were able to actually meet that requirement that it covered across our whole business. So that was really critical to us. We've had fantastic support from Zevo over that 3-year period. And I suppose our relationship and our service offerings have just matured on an ongoing basis, which is really key to us. So it's been evolving all of the time, which has just been fantastic.
With COVID happening over the last few months, have you found that having a wellbeing provider has had like a positive effect when trying to deal with coronavirus?
Yes, yeah, I would. I suppose, like if you think about it, like when you think back 5 months ago to when this all started, around the 12th, 13th of March, I mean, and when you think back and you reflect on that time, my initial thoughts were, oh my God, how are we going to address this? What measures do we need to put in place? And I think for any HR professional, it was quite a daunting time because a pandemic is something that you could never see coming. If you think back to the financial crisis in 2008, you could see it generally happening and you could plan for it. And you knew the sort of practical things that needed to be done, both from a commercial perspective and a people perspective. But with a pandemic, like this, you have no idea, what's going to happen. So I suppose our initial thing was like, okay, we've got 1,100 people that we need to, ensure that they work remotely immediately. And I mean, we were so lucky that we had just deployed MS Teams within our organisation. So we'd no issues from a technology side. If anything, I suppose it threw us into the centre of it. That all worked, which was absolutely fantastic. But it's the psychological impact that it's had on people, and that's the unknown piece. Like, when are things going to return to normal? When is there going to be some stability for our people? So and that would have been the biggest challenge for us. And I have to think of it as well, like, within our business, we would have varying groups of people that we would have to manage and look after. So we would have employees who would support frontline workers, like we're traditionally a recruitment company. So we're supporting the healthcare and supply chain sectors. And some of those individuals had to be in the office or they had to attend a client location in order to do their job. So when you think about that and you're throwing somebody into a pandemic, environment and it's unknown territory. So we have to make sure that our people feel safe and secure and making sure that they have up-to-date and relevant information, so that they can carry on and do their jobs. And then we have people, obviously, who are delivering, different varying talent solutions to clients where they're interacting with people all the time. That's what we do. And now they have to work from home. And working from home is the norm now. It's not the exception. So people are missing out on those things that we take for granted, like those corridor encounters, the coffee catch-ups, your team collaborations, meeting with clients and candidates, attending events. Like the list is absolutely endless. So it's that physical piece. It's not being able to see people. So it's like that tangible piece as such. And to that was going to be a real challenge. And we could see that, happening quite quickly. So I suppose what we did was, we had to think about, right, okay, what is it we're going to put in place to actually make sure that our people feel connected to the business and connected to each other. So we developed a Staying Connected campaign where all of our communications and engagements were delivered through this across all our locations, so across Ireland, the UK, and Central Eastern Europe. And the first thing that we did was we actually rebranded our employee assistance programme, which a lot of organisations will be familiar with, which we now refer to as our CPL Support Hub. And we started off with some really simple initiatives to get people interacting and used to actually working within a technology environment as such, where, meetings, one-to-ones, everything was happening online. So we introduced like a virtual cafe where you'd be matched with a colleague on a weekly basis. Then we set up, team hosted quizzes, we had bingo nights. And then obviously we had a range of webinars that we would have facilitated through Zevo, which were only fantastic, but people could choose what was relevant to them and what was of interest to them. So we weren't pushing all this information, we were making it available, but making it very much available in a structured sense. So like if you think about it, very practical things, how to talk to your children about COVID-19. As adults, we're trying to grapple with all the information that's coming out. So how do your kids then cope with that? How you lead your team remotely, dealing with stress and anxiety, building resistance. So we're really, large range of webinars and different pieces of information and materials that were available, because we wanted to recognise that our employees were having very different experiences. Like we have people who are parents, we'd, young people who are living in flat shares in Dublin, people who are looking after vulnerable young adults, supporting, older parents. So there was so much going on and such a variety. So we had to recognise that not one size fits all, but by making sure that we could make everything as available as much as we could.
Yeah, that all sounds absolutely amazing. And have you found that because with everything that you were then providing, like the virtual coffee and the bingo, I know at the beginning of COVID, everyone was doing kind of the Zoom chats and quizzes, but I feel like maybe there's been a bit of a die down since, like the momentum has kind of fallen off because it's been going on for so long now, and I feel like we were all kind of expecting to be back in the office nearly by August, September. So is there still good engagement with the things that you've kind of been providing?
Yeah, there is, and I suppose we've tried to keep I suppose if I think about all of our standard people initiatives and programs that we would have had if we had been in the office, we've adapted those from a virtual perspective. And then we've also added in fun things as well. But people can choose what they want to do. So for example, we've kept the momentum. Like we would have had Pilates classes, within a couple of our locations, all the time before COVID. Now they're online twice a week. We've hit classes online. So they're there for people, and that's there for them. Their choice is there if they want to do that. We developed a sports day for children, a virtual sports day. We've jumped on the TikTok bandwagon. We've done a couple of initiatives out of that. So we try to move with the times as well, and what the in thing is at that point in time. So we send out 2 weekly updates each week of all the different stuff that's going on. Like we've had a photography competition, running all over the summer. There's been fantastic interest in that, and that's been across all of our locations within Europe, UK and Ireland, and that's been fantastic. But like, I suppose, like, I'll be really honest and say you are constantly thinking, well, what is the next thing we're going to do? What's the new, that there's got, not that there's got to be new things all of the time, but it's about keeping that consistent. And we really try to get our leadership and our leadership team and our directors involved to make sure that they get involved and they're actually involved in the initiatives and the programs as well, because it's all about leading by example and leading from the top. Our CEO does, regular broadcasts. She talks about all of the programs that we're doing under Staying Connected. Like with Zevo, we have a steps challenge. We've run loads of those. The competition, across the globe, I could say, has been unbelievable in terms of the number of steps that people are ranking up. Yeah. It's unreal, and we're currently involved in an intercompany challenge, with another one of your clients. And, that's created some competitive drive across the business, I'd say there'd be some people that could be hung out to dry because they haven't been putting the effort in, but there is lots of stuff going on, but you do always have to keep thinking, well, what's the next thing? What is the next thing? But we do ask our people for lots of feedback, what they want to see coming, etc. And even like this year has been a real challenge, around performance management. We want those performance conversations to happen. We've implemented a new online system to help us support that, which has been fantastic. So it's just trying to be ahead of the game all the time and thinking about what can we do to ensure that engagement is still there, or people still feel connected, and they feel that CPL, is doing everything that we possibly can to try and keep us on track and on balance as much as we can, because we have also all the challenges with our business as well. Like some of our business areas, are really challenged at the moment. Some of our other areas are performing exceptionally well. So it's trying to make sure that we can look after all quarters within the organization to make sure that people, feel that they're being looked after, and that's key.
Yeah. So have you and your colleagues managed working from home throughout the pandemic, and have you come up against any struggles?
Yeah, I think, do you know what? I think for a long time as an organisation, we would have talked about, putting better work-life balance and better programs and flexibilities in place for our people, and we'd be, running pilot programs, etc. When you think back in March, overnight, everybody's working from home. So, and it's great at the beginning, Teams is working, but people are exhausted with Teams, people are exhausted with Zoom. And there's also that piece of, trying to get people to unplug. I mean, I'd be the world's worst at it, but that's really important because, home and life, your home life and your work life are now the two, they're both together, and that can be a real challenge for people. So we have to make sure, that our managers are reaching out, that they're talking to our people, they're understanding the concerns and the issues that they may have. We went through a program with Zevo last year where we had about 100 of our managers and directors trained as mental health champions. And we felt that was really important at the time so that we could, recognize signs within the workplace and really equip our people, I suppose, one, around destigmatizing the whole issue around mental health, and two, understanding and looking for cues that they may see within team members. And I think that's actually helped us. We've been through this pandemic. So even though people, don't physically see each other, but it's trying to pick up on those cues within, team meetings or one-to-ones, etc. But listen, it is a challenge. And there is a little bit where, a good percentage of our people, they are fed up with it. They miss the office. They want to get back into the office, and up until the government, made the recent changes last week, we're getting our offices prepared for our people to go back. I've been going into a couple of our Dublin offices, and people are so excited to see each other, and they miss that. They miss that interaction with people. And that's still going to pose a challenge for us as we move forward, and how quickly, we come out of this phase as such in terms of reopening the Irish economy. But it's so important that, whatever glimpse, that we do get, that we take it and we run with it as quick as we can as such. And I just think that's really important for our people. But it is a challenge. I don't have the answers of what's the right or wrong thing to do in it, but I think we just have to recognise that it is. We've got to keep talking to our people, putting support programmes in place, etc. And I think that's really key. Yeah. Really key.
Yeah, definitely knowing that they have support from their upper management is, I think, once they know that they have that there, that's the first kind of step. there's some talking about and some that they can go to.
Yeah. Like even, Aisling, if I think, for a couple of people within my own team that have small children, like I've been in meetings where, small children have been on a colleague's lap. That's fine. You got to move past that, obviously it's probably a little bit different now because, the creches and schools are opening, which is great because we've all got to try, we've got to live with this and we've got to move on through it. And I think it's given people now the coping mechanisms, to do that and not try, to scare people in any way. We've got to positively look at how we can adapt and move through this. And that's really key,
And then what do you think the workplace is going to look like post-coronavirus? So when we start going back to the office, do you think it's going to have an effect on it?
Yeah, I mean, God, post-COVID, when is that going to happen? That's the first thing I would nearly ask, Yeah, if anybody has a magic wand. I mean, it's very hard to answer it. I think, our economies and workplaces, we've been shocked. If you think back to the 12th of March when this all happened, I thought, this will be all over in a couple of weeks and we'll be fine. But I was reading a recent piece of research that was done by McKinsey. And what they're saying is that 80% of people questioned report that they enjoy working from home. Of course we do. I think of myself, I get to go for my swim at 7 a.m. every morning now, as opposed to being in traffic for an hour and a half. 41% say that they're more productive, and 28% feel, that productivity will continue. Most employees, they're liberated because they don't have those long commutes and they found more productive ways to spend that time, whether it's flexibility and balancing their personal or professional lives. And we also know from speaking with our clients that many organizations, they can access different pools of talent with fewer location constraints, and also they can adopt innovative ways to boost productivity. So there's lots of opportunity, I think, as we enter into the world post-COVID, whenever that may be. And I also think that organizations, it'll give them an opportunity to create a stronger culture and even to reduce property costs. There's lots of buildings in Ireland that are lying empty at the moment because people are still working from home. What I do know is that people will have different expectations and preferences to working from home or working from another place other than, the standard office. And what we think in CPL, for our businesses, that we would probably have more of a hybrid approach to flexibility. So we know that there's going to be a bigger demand, for work-life balance, but that all has to be evaluated by a business and it's one thing that we will do, and it's got to meet business and client needs, and that's really important. So it's an opportunity to examine every aspect, but it's about taking a measured approach in how you analyze that as such. So I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I just think there's an awful lot of opportunity. And even if you think about, Aisling, the prep that we're doing at the moment to get the actual workplace right, like that in itself is it's very complicated because it's governed, by so many health and safety regulations, etc. And our employees will be looking at us. They'll want to see that we're doing that right, and by doing that right, and then obviously them returning to work, to a safe place. So I think there's lots of challenges there for organisations and lots of things to consider.
Yeah, definitely. And then if we forget about COVID now for the next little while, what are some of the benefits that CPL has seen from having a wellness strategy in place, and what kind of impact has it had on your team?
Okay, well, in my career, wellbeing has always been part of a people strategy that I've been accountable for. That goes without saying. And I think if you think about how HR has evolved over the years, wellbeing has also evolved. And corporate wellness programs, they've been around for the last number of years. And it's all about having that very much rounded and holistic approach. And obviously then organizations can pick and choose what they feel meets, their corporate needs and then also their employee needs. From us, however, what we've seen is that we're part of the Great Place to Work programme. We're currently placed 13th in Ireland's large best workplace category. And we have seen a significant impact in terms of our Great Place to Work scores, okay, and how people view well-being within the workplace. And our people know that CPL cares about their well-being and about them as individuals. And I suppose I honestly think that having a wellbeing program in place, it makes us much more mindful of people's wellness. It's definitely linked to productivity. Our employees, who we take care of, that we provide really good programs to, that they can avail of in the workplace, and not just them, their families also. That's really important. And we've also incorporated wellbeing as part of our end of year discussions. We actually get our managers to talk to our people about their well-being, about any stresses or anxieties or impacts that may have on their actual performance or productivity within the workplace. So it's part of our ongoing discussions. And I think what it ultimately does is it gives us a lens as an organisation to look at how we do things internally, because we're much more mindful of the impact that it will have on people. And every sort of new program, whether it's through wellness or if it's a new performance management program or what it may be, we consider the individual, we consider the impact on the individual, in terms of, changing their behaviours towards a particular program or whatever. So it's really important to us, wellbeing. It's part of the whole makeup of everything that we do from a people perspective. And it's just one of those cogs that we have to have. It's not a nice to have, it's something that we strive to have and continue to have in place within the organisation, because we see the overall benefits of it.
So then, do you think that it's the responsibility of the employer to have a wellness program put in place for the employees?
Listen, every organisation will take their own view on it. From a CPL perspective, I do believe that it is our responsibility. If you think about the amount of time that individuals spend in the workplace, and I suppose the pressures, the expectations, it's one of those things. And not to sound like, oh God, real, if you think back like years ago, well-being would have been health and safety at one point, So, and then, when I think in my career, it always started out with, if you got healthcare cover, and then if you got your EAP program, if you threw in a couple of exercise classes during the week, that sort of stuff. But it's more now a much more holistic approach, like we would have financial wellness as well. We've got an awful lot of programs and initiatives under the whole financial spectrum as well. And it's about what makes you stand out as an employer as well, those additional offerings. It's not just about the benefits package, it's about all the other stuff that comes into it that makes it much more rounded, as I would say, in terms of the offering to employees. So I think it is an employer's responsibility, to provide that. And then it's for the individual to choose what suits them at that particular point in their life. Like if you think about for an employee's, life cycle as such, within the workplace, they'll go through varying different stages, depending at the point when they actually join the organisation. So what they want from a wellness program will differ in line with that. So I think it's a no-brainer really from an employment perspective to have a really good, comprehensive and flexible wellness program in place.
And do you think that it's something that people who are looking for jobs will come to expect from an employer? So it's seen less of a benefit and more of a necessity that they choose, an employer that has a wellbeing program kind of put in place?
I don't know if it's something that they would expect, but they would expect, I think, some component of wellness. So in terms of how sophisticated it is, that would obviously be a personal choice. But, there's not many organisations out there who don't do something. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's an EAP, whether it's covering healthcare costs, if it's been part of something like Zevo or whatever, that there's different variations out there. But I think there would be some expectation that there'd be something. Do you know what I mean? That's what I believe anyway, And I think at CPL, and also it very much depends as well, I think, on the type of organisation and the jobs that the individuals are doing, so that would have a massive impact as well in terms of the type of offering. But for an organisation like ours, which is very diversified, it's a pressurised environment, we expect a lot from our people, but I think our wellness programme gives back an awful lot to our people. They've got that choice and that flexibility to choose what they want. Like Aisling, if I explain to you, like the first steps challenge we ever did, we did it just in our Irish business as a pilot, and we had 600 people and 400 people signed up to the steps challenge. Do you know what I mean? So people want it. Do you know what I mean? And that was just something very small that we did, and we were blown away with the response to it. So,
and that's why I want to talk to you about the step challenges. I've seen firsthand how competitive CPL get within the step challenges, and it's unbelievable for us to see how engaged everyone is. And I know you're taking part in the one that's happening at the moment. So how do you think that they benefit everyone? How do you find them yourself personally, and then how do you think as an organisation it benefits?
Well, I think because the way in which we structure it is we do it on a teams, like we do individual ones, okay? And so we've got the individual and the team steps challenge. So the one at the moment is a team step challenge. So you're allocated within a team. There's a little team, there's a team lead. So the team lead is pushing you along and everyone knows what everybody's doing. So you feel very much, you're part of something. It's something much bigger than yourself. So, and you don't want to let your team down in any way. And when you're getting constant reminders from the centre in terms of how many steps you're behind your competitor, you're like, oh my God, I can't let the team down. So, but like some people are crazy with it. Some people are out walking at 12 at night. And I just think, yeah, fair play to you. That's great, So, and some people are not as good, but like, there's no, like people don't beat each other up about it. Do you know what I mean? But it just creates this really great, fun, competitive environment, and we've, and a good number of our leadership team are doing it as well, which is great. And it just creates a really great vibe around the place. And because we're all at home, it's like something we can all do together, although we're not together, so it's good in that respect.
Where did your interest for wellbeing kind of come from?
Well, I suppose as a HR professional, wellbeing is, part of my remit. Okay. So it comes with the job as such, and it's always been in my whole career, within HR. So, but I suppose, I think what really interests me is that it's not just about healthcare or about EAP. There is so much more to the whole wellbeing spectrum, and there's so many things that you can touch on as an organisation. I also think for myself, like a swim in the open sea. I've recently bought an electric bike. Don't laugh. I'm not a cyclist, but I like to get out. So, like personally, like I'm a person who likes to move and do things. But I just think from a people perspective, it's just one of those things. It's not a difficult thing to do within an organisation to set up, to map out, to have different events, etc. It's actually one of the easiest things from a HR perspective to do, but it is the right thing to do. I think we live in a world that can throw anything at us, as we've seen with COVID-19. Hey, going back to that, but when you think about COVID-19, it's one of the things that, you watch a movie, that's come out of Hollywood on it. It's not something, that you ever think is going to happen. So I think what's been really great for us is that by having our wellness program really well established, we were able to sort of notch it up a gear as part of COVID-19 and really drive the hell out of it in terms of what it is, in terms of what we wanted to give our people going forward through the whole wellness spectrum. So I just think it's a no-brainer really from an employment perspective, but it's something, that I would be quite passionate about. And you can see the benefits from people in terms of, the different programs that they get involved in and the different supports that they get, etc. And that does feed into their family life as well, and more so in this time when, we're working in our homes and everything is just blended together.
Then you mentioned your morning swim, that now that you're working from home, you can enjoy that in the morning. Is there anything else that you do to practice wellness kind of on a daily basis?
I would listen on the Zevo app. There's lots of meditations, and I would do those. I try and do them in the evening time to sort of, I suppose, de-stress me and relax me. For a period of time when, I'd be really honest, when things were quite stressful from a work perspective, because you didn't know what each day was going to bring as we were going through stuff over the last 5 months, and I found some of them really beneficial for myself. Because I'd be a little bit highly strung. So they were good to help calm me down. And the Zevo app, they've got such a variety on there. They were just great, just really good. And an awful lot of the nutritional information as well, and recipes and all of that. So there's some really good stuff there. So, but my swimming is my big thing. Like I would swim about 1,500 meters when I go for my swim. And, and I when people say they go for a run and it's headspace, when I stick my head in water, that's my headspace. So.
The final question that I have for you is, we've seen some great engagement from CPL within their wellbeing program. What advice could you give to employers who want to encourage their staff to engage within a wellbeing program?
I think the main thing, Aisling, is that you need to survey your staff to find out what it is that they want. Okay, and that'd be key. One of the things that my colleague Niamh O'Connor did about 2 years ago was a diagnostic survey, so that we, I suppose, understood the makeup of our employees, in particular around, their, I suppose, their personal profile, and also what their interests and needs were. And that's really a key thing to do, because that will sort of help you structure what your wellbeing program should be. Because any HR professional or wellness provider can say, yeah, let's tick all these ones, we'll do all these are all really good, and throw them out there. But you really need to engage with your people. One of the things we have as well within CPL is we have what we call Great Place to Work champions, and we would work really closely with those guys in terms of what's needed on the ground, what they're hearing back from their teams, etc. So, and that's critical to the success of any program, is really listening to your people and understanding what it is that you want. And then once you do that and you actually structure a program around those needs, then it will be successful. But you still need to constantly get feedback, understand what worked well, what didn't work well, etc. But I think if you adopt that approach, as opposed to just chucking everything into the basket, picking out what's really going to work for your people. And we've done some things that haven't worked, like we did have a 7:30 a.m. HIIT class. That didn't work, so we changed it around. Do you know what I mean? And because you ask for feedback from people about what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for joining us today. Thank you for listening to another episode of Zevo Talks. And thank you to Sharon Vize for taking the time to join us today. The way in which we work has changed massively in recent years, and never more so than in 2020 with the world adapting to COVID-19. How organisations support their people is more important than ever. Thank you again for joining us, and tune in next time to hear more about what the future of the workplace looks like.